You're live. Okay, so this is the Finance Committee meeting on June 19th. Andrew Basel, Monica Hamill, Dr. Otto, and Mark Boyer here. We have two members in the audience of the public, Mr. Connor Kurtz and Mr. Rich Martino. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is really to discuss the issue of lunch pricing, so that there's a recommendation for the board at the voting meeting in June. It's now 6:04 p.m. All right, so Mr. Boyer has sent around a model for us to take a look at, and he made some adjustments to the model in terms of management fees, which dramatically impacted the financial pro forma and projected net asset value of the fund going forward over the next few years. Our concern was that the amount of the assets was decreasing at an appreciable basis and going to zero, and if not zero, past zero into negative numbers, which would mean we'd have to start funding this out of our operating fund. So I'm going to let you, Mr. Boyer, elaborate on the changes in the assumptions to the model that were made for the benefit of the public, and how that impacts our total net asset value at the end of each year. Excuse me.
Well, I'll turn that over to Mr. Boyer, since he's done the bulwark of the work here.
The essential change was with how our contract with Sodexo is actually priced out. It's a price per meal contract. So when I originally put together the model, I kind of just used an average instead of actually taking a look at how it was, the contract was actually brought up with Sodexo. So I changed the amount we're actually paying Sodexo this year is significantly dropped. Like I said before, it was based upon price per meal. So they charge us a set amount, the number of meals that are served. So since the number of meals did drop, I had to lower the management fee essentially that we're paying Sodexo, which increased our essentially our ending net assets that we're projecting for the 2012-2013 school year at $95,700.
No, I'm just going to write some notes.
So, in essence, at the end of the school year 2015-2016, we are looking at a ending net asset amount of $397,623, which would actually suffice the 3-month operating expense requirement that the auditors prefer us to have in our ending net assets. And along with that, the recommendation for price per meal for the 13-14 school year for middle school and high school would be $2.65. Elementary, that would be lunch, excuse me. Elementary lunch would be $2.50. High school, middle school breakfast would be $1.45. The same would be for elementary breakfast. And then a la carte would increase 20 cents per item. With those increases in our price per meal, along with the projections that we have here, we're looking at having a more healthy ending net asset number for this year and going forward.
I think my only comment on the assumptions is I think we need to get clarification on what the management fee is per a la carte meal.
Okay.
Right? Because this model assumes it's zero.
Yeah.
And so if you ask the question, which I asked of Mr. Boyer before everybody showed up and before the meeting showed up, if meals went to zero, the number of meals served went to zero, and the number of a la carte meals went up to 600,000, we cannot assume that Sodexo is going to take a $0, zero management fees for the year. So there's got to be, I'm sure there's somewhere built into their contract, something for a la carte meals, some sort of stipend or percentage or fee. And so we just want to, I think you got to clarify that. I don't know if it's enough that it warrants, raising all our fees by a little bit more to cover whatever that additional cost may be. And I don't know what that would mean, or if it's so negligible that it's not even worth dinkering around with at this point. We can always reevaluate next year. So, what are your thoughts, Monica?
I was just reading this one thing, the increase per meal.
Mhm.
This one line says cost per meal increase to balance is a penny, or less than a penny. There's on page, on the summary page, sheet. The balance to increase the salaries in retirement. Total meals is two.
She's looking at L15 on the summary
Right, like
tab.
Total meals is 235,560. Is that total meals that we sell for the year? It seems low, but
You see the tab?
You're on
increase
the.
in is
okay.
that the increase in lunches? The increase in
Oh, yeah, that was the original tab we had. That was the original sheet we actually presented back at, when this first came up 2 finance committees ago.
okay,
Yeah, we kind of steered away from that. We're now on.
just
is it-
on this,
Yeah, we're on the yellow tab. It's highlighted on.
Financial.
just
Yeah,
the
it says
financial aspect. Of
Yeah,
it?
sorry.
But some of the,
Yeah.
Okay.
if you
That's just-
scroll to the right,
Okay.
Ms. Hamley, you'll see there's meal rates, which is also highlighted where he outlines what the increase in meal rates are going to be. And there's another tab you probably find interesting, which is meal statistics, which is where he's kind of, there's some blanks in there, but it kind of shows you the number of meals being served per year and what the prices are for meals.
Great, I was
And-
looking at that. Free.
I mean, I think I'm all right with what's being recommended in terms of the prices and the price increases. I think the only thing I might suggest is that, and maybe this is just something that we discuss, either you send us an email or between now and the voting meeting, or we discuss it at the voting meeting if you can't get your hands on the information at the time, which is what is the additional cost that we're bearing for Sodexo in terms of these a la carte meals.
Yeah.
And if it's $50,000, well, clearly, we got to do something with pricing then to make sure that we're covering that additional cost. Either raising a la carte prices even higher than what you're suggesting, which is 20 cents per item, to some other item, and I would assume it's probably 3 a la carte items per meal in terms of your assumptions, and then say, okay, well, it's going to cost then X number of, maybe 3 cents, maybe 5 cents, maybe 7 cents on a la carte item to
Correct.
break even on whatever that increase might be in the Sodexo contract.
What I'll do is I'll look at the contract first of all. If not, I'll contract the district manager and find out the answer for you. I should have it tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
So why not? And then if there's adjustment, I'll make the adjustment and then I will share the
I mean, if it's $5,000, I'm not going to sweat it, but if it's something that's,
pretty significant.
yeah, if it's
I-
5 figures or more, I mean, I think then that could be $10,000 or $15,000 less than what we're
Correct.
supposed to be building up to, and we're trying to get this number up higher
Correct.
over the next 3-4 years. So we'd like to shoot for, I think, that monthly figure that the adjuster had recommended, which is 3 times the total of 3 months worth of
Operating expense.
operating expenses. So, okay, what do you think?
Well, this was a much better figure. I mean, the last ones we had, we were almost breaking even there for a while, so
We're losing money. Yeah.
losing money. So no, this looks better, but.
Can we post these for the agenda?
Yeah, I'd post
So
it. I
that we
mean,
can at
if,
least have
if you
these.
have an adjustment tomorrow, that you can, email us, bounce it off us, but, and then we can put that in the figure.
we
So
have
at least we have
right.
something that can go out with the package to
Right.
the other board members.
We have a placeholder in the agenda for this item.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments?
Other than to say, I think when people hear, they look at this, and we can represent, just by saying it, this is about, what, a 15-16% increase
Yes.
in school lunch prices.
Yeah, but in context, you also may want to put on there where we have these prices on the second sheet. We had a sheet, I don't have the spreadsheet open, but it was sent to me, the prices for, the average prices for Berks County, Chester County, and Montgomery County for the same. And I think what you're going to see is that these numbers fall in below those,
Oh, yeah.
particularly for Montgomery County.
You're correct with Montgomery County and Chester. Berks, this would put us at the top.
Yeah.
the breakfast would put us basically in the top tier. So, but for Montgomery and Chester County.
Well, look, we border Montgomery and Chester County. I mean, we're not in the middle of Berks County.
Correct.
By any stretch.
Okay?
Yep.
And that way, because this will be a document that gets published, and so
Right.
if the public has questions about, oh my
Right.
gosh, it seems so high, well, relatively speaking,
Right.
it's not.
And we can put out a little communique. Mark, if you have the figures, we can work on putting a communique out when it's finalized.
Yes.
So the public
I believe,
knows.
Daniel has that spreadsheet, and I will get that.
Okay.
And I know we talked about educating students about the benefits of a meal. Have we looked into that? Because that was the last conversation we had.
Yes.
Educating students about getting the meal and how we were going to have them get a meal even if they couldn't drink the milk. You know, did we look into that at all? Not that that will
I have to
change
get
figures,
I have
but.
to get clarification from our food service manager on the whole, if the milk is actually, if you have to have milk as a component of the meal for it to be a meal.
Mhm.
I know there was some verbiage going around at the last meeting that it was. I just want to get clarification on that to make sure that, yes, you have to have a milk product as part of the meal or it's not a meal.
Mhm.
If it's not, then that's a different story. But with our new food service manager, there is a plan to work diligently to make sure that the students are educated that this is what a complete meal is. And essentially this is what your $2.65 could buy you.
Mhm.
Okay, you can get all this for $2.65. Now, whether or not they want that. They did review in our last CAF managers meeting of the year, they did review a new menu, which seems pretty aggressive towards going after what the kids seem to like and what they bought.
Mhm.
They kind of, the cycles of the meals, they kind of changed up a little bit, which could help us.
Mhm.
It's still up to the child to purchase a meal or not. But yes, there is an aggressive education plan that's going to go into effect that will hopefully turn this more in our favor.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Right, that's
At the very
what-
least, give them a little thing of chocolate syrup so they can turn the milk into
Something.
chocolate milk so
Yeah.
they drink it, you know what I mean?
Something.
Dark chocolate, it's better for you.
I don't know. My recollection was he was pretty darn adamant that without the milk, it's not considered a meal. If it's not considered a meal, you don't get the federal reimbursement. So if there's a variance to that, well, then that dramatically changes the whole equation in our
I
considerations.
just want to make sure,
Yeah.
I just want to get extreme clarification on that, just to make sure that that is what it needs to be with the milk, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Martino.
Are these prices for the adults too?
No, we have separate adult prices.
Essentially, the adult price is mixed in with the à la carte. When we look at à la carte, we essentially, anything but a meal purchased by a student is lumped into à la carte. So essentially, the adult price would go up 20 cents, but that could be, I mean, Sodexo recommends that you can charge whatever you want for an adult meal. The amount of meals purchased by adults are really, I'm not going to say insignificant, but they're very small.
What's happened, Mr. Martino, is that we were just looking at the statistic earlier, and I've touched on it a couple times. Adult meals, lunches used to be, like in 2010, like 4,500 lunches in a year, which is a lot, I think. And so you ought to be charging, in my opinion, $4 or $5 a meal, not $2 or $3 a meal to an adult. I mean, these are all people that work, and they get paid very well to work. There was 3,200 in 2011, and then last year in 2012 it was 280. I mean, it just dropped off a cliff. And the explanation we got from Sodexo was, well, they're not buying lunches anymore; they're doing a la carte. And that brought us all the way around to this discussion of, okay, well, they're doing a la carte, students are doing a la carte. We only get reimbursed for meals. We don't get reimbursed for a la carte. So students that are getting meals are dumping the milk. They're not even drinking it, so we're throwing away milk and we're wasting, milk, which is more expensive than gasoline these days. And so, one, how do we incentivize kids to take the meal instead of doing a la carte because it's healthier for them, one, and two, we get the reimbursement for it. And then two, how do we charge more, for the adults that are obviously taking advantage of the meals here? And so what was suggested was we raise the a la carte prices. And what's being suggested here is we're raising the a la carte prices by 20 cents an item. We've assumed that people are getting at least 3 items when they're doing a la carte, something to drink, maybe a slice of pizza or whatever it is, and a bag of chips or something like that. And so you just raise the price overall 60 cents a meal for a la carte.
But do you have to have the same price for adults as you do for students, even a la carte?
There's already a different, well, for a la carte, that's,
I don't know the answer to that question.
yeah.
The reason my stepdaughter works at Frederick Mennonite Home.
Mhm.
My wife went out to have lunch with her today. Now, it's the same situation at their cafeteria.
Mhm.
My wife got a wrap sandwich, $4, and a drink and a bag of chips, all a la carte, and the meal cost her $5 something. These prices, and let me go on record as saying our adults working in the school make a lot more than my wife makes. I just don't see why we're charging them
No, I agree with you.
so little when we're saving them the inconvenience of driving somewhere and the time and the gas.
Or packing a lunch of their own. Yeah, I'm in agreement. I mean, I think there ought to be a large price differentiation for adults from the student meals. They shouldn't be paying student prices, and they ought to be paying something a little bit more significant. I think my recommendation was $4.50 or $5 a meal versus, I think, what are they paying now?
To be honest with you,
I don't have that in front of me in
I
here.
don't have that in front of me, but it is higher than the meal, and I can get that information, email it to you.
I may have it. Let me just take a look here.
When I was looking for something also, had vending machines, were we putting something in for vending machines? I'm looking for.
Yeah,
What, is that the plan?
any
Because I saw.
vendor and catering revenue is also
Right.
included in this.
Okay.
It's actually in the, it is in the food service revenue line, it's just that line is compressed of any meal, a la carte. This, you get about 15,000 from catering and vending combined.
Okay, because I saw that, and I.
Yes, that's
where I
included.
saw it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think breakfast adult is now $2. Lunch adult is $3.50.
But again, that's the meal price, right?
That's the meal price, right? I don't have a la carte pricing here on this spreadsheet. It was just,
Probably the same for students and teachers at this point, isn't it? Like, I mean,
A la carte is.
Yeah.
well, like a lunch for a student at the elementary school was $2.15, and at the high school it's $2.30. So, you know, adults are paying $1.20 more. I mean, my recommendation was to charge an adult $4.50, or something like that for a meal, and at least for lunch, and for breakfast, the adult breakfast, charging them $3.50 or something like that. They're paying $2 now, and getting those numbers up a lot higher. And I don't even know, we don't even have an a la carte menu here in terms of pricing. So I don't know what we charge per item on a la carte.
I can-
It's probably on the website somewhere. Just look up the student link. I can't imagine that was taken down yet.
Can I see your rate schedule here? Do you have it?
Absolutely.
I mean, this says $1. Is that right?
On average, yes. We just kind of generalize the average, so.
So you,
There's a food service tab, isn't there, Mark?
Yep, I'm just trying to find, there's the menu. Here's the actual meal price, but I don't see anything for a la carte price. Which I can have Sodexo provide us with the price listing of all the items. They do sell a la carte for pricing there.
Yeah, I think my recommendation, and I would add that on here, I'm glad, Mr. Martini, you brought that up, because I did mention it before, is that you raise the a la carte, or you raise the adult pricing as well, the $3.50 and $4.50 for breakfast and lunch, and a la carte, another $1. I mean, if they're paying $1 per a la carte menu, that'd be paying a whole nother $1 on top of that, to $2 or $2.20. I mean, do you have an objection with that?
I don't know.
Per item.
Okay.
Can't go to Wawa and get a
Can't get
dinner
anything on
water
it.
for $1.
I mean, that would bring a meal, if they're getting 3 items, that'd bring a meal up to like $6.60 for a meal, a la carte for an adult.
You can keep that. Or do you need that?
You could pass that on
Oh.
to, make sure he's got that.
Here, Mark. Unsuccessful flight.
All right. Good point, Mr. Martino. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yeah, sure. Connor Ferguson and I, Richard Rathbone. So I'd just like to mention that the average rate that these are going up each year, prices for students, is about 3.75. It's exactly 3.75%, and that's way below the rate some of our other contractual expenses are increasing, particularly salary and benefits. So I think that's interesting to note that.
Well, I think you just have to keep in mind in terms that, for me at least, the way I look at lunch pricing is that, these are the families, right, of these children that, and
Yeah, I agree. I'm saying-
we're making we do make a profit off of our management contract with Sodexo. And at the end of the day, the purpose for us in raising these fees is to make sure that the net asset value of that fund is high enough so that there's funds available to pay for the silverware, the plates, the ovens, the dishwashers, and all those other capital expenses that come up from time to time. We're clearly covering our operating costs. It's the capital costs that I'm most concerned about that may be coming up in the future, and having enough funds available to pay for those improvements when the time is due. And we are going to get there in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 3 years. The concern that we heard at the last meeting, and Mr. Seminaro voiced it too, was you don't want to go from here to here, right? You want to go from here to here to here to here. Over time, it's a little bit easier for people to adjust to that.
Yeah, and I agree. I just think it's important, not for the committee to know, and everybody in the public to know that while this may seem to some people as a large increase, it's not large at all compared to the rate that some of our other costs are going up. The cost to the school district and in turn the taxpayers.
Yeah.
I just think that's very interesting.
Well, and it remains static for years and years and years and years, which is one of the reasons why we're in the mess we're in now. So, changes need to be made. Okay, Mr. Boyer, you have it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
Mr.
The
Yes.
website says the lunch includes a main entree from any station in the dining hall, vegetable, fruit, choice of milk. It doesn't say milk, juice, water, just choice of milk.
Okay. I'll still get
But
clarification.
that's
Just
what's
to
on the
make sure.
website right now.
Yeah. So it's not really a choice.
It's not really a choice.
As, at least the way it's posted on the website.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe we should have somebody who,
Well, once you know completely,
Yeah.
then if it is juice, that'd be great, but I've never heard of it being juice, so.
well, if it's just milk, it's not really a choice, so get rid of the word choice on the
Yeah.
website, right?
No.
Mr. Smith, do you have anything you want to add before we close the Finance Committee meeting? We were just discussing lunch prices tonight, and that's about it.
No.
Okay. Just want
I'm sorry, what, does it increase?
Yeah, it's going up. We have a fund balance that's not part of our operating budget or our reserve funds. It's strictly to pay for meals and kitchen, employees and those types of expenses, as well as capital costs, new ovens, new dishwashers, and things like that come up. And the net asset value of that fund has been decreasing appreciably over the last few years because we haven't changed our lunch prices really over the last 6 years. And as a result of that, it was projected to go negative, which would mean we'd have to take money out of our operating account to pay for these types of things. So Last year, the federal government mandated that we start to increase prices in order to be even qualified for the reimbursement that they had put forward, and we did that. But looking at our operating fund for our what do you want to call it? Is it
It's an enterprise fund.
the enterprise fund? Looking at that thing going negative within a year, we realized we had to do something a little bit more drastic. So we're looking to raise the
So they
prices.
did increase this past school year.
Yeah, I think it was like 10 cents or something like that. It wasn't much per meal, but it was whatever was required by to meet the guidelines of the federal subsidy program. And so we met those guidelines, and that was all we did. And we weren't really focused on what the net asset value was of the fund itself and what upcoming expenses we might have. And once we did that, we realized we were going negative. Well, we had to take some additional steps. So that's where we are tonight.
So that whatever proposed increase will be consistent with other districts in the area.
Yeah, well, we'll probably be the highest priced district in Berks County, but we'll be, overall, we're lower than most other schools in Chester and Montgomery counties, which we also border. So, and we'll be publishing all that for the committee of the whole, or the voting meeting on Monday. So that'll be out there for people to take a look at. Okay?
Did you end up finding the adult meal pricing?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay, I was just going to say.
Yeah, it was $2 for a breakfast and $3.50 for a lunch. And the recommendation is to take it up to $3.50 for breakfast and $4.50 for lunch, and to change the a la carte pricing for an adult from $1 to $2 or $2.20 or whatever it is that it's going to be next year.
Yeah, I just found that list. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, if that's it, no objections, this meeting's at a close. It's 6:30.